The combat arena stretched before me like a monument to bad decisions, and I was about to witness the worst one yet. My name is Vorkath, Senior Combat Instructor at the Galactic Military Academy on Station Helix 9, and in my 300 cycles of service, I have seen approximately 47,000 fights. Real fights. Professional fights. Fights where trained soldiers demonstrated proper technique, followed protocol, and showed the discipline that separates warriors from corpses. This was not going to be one of those fights. "Instructor Vorkath," said Cadet Threxus, my assistant, his voice pitched with barely contained excitement. "The human has arrived." I turned one of my eye stalks toward the prep area where our latest recruit stood waiting. Riley Morgan, 22 standard years old, female, human. From Earth, that nightmare ball of gravity and violence that half the galaxy now whispered about like it was some sort of legend instead of a documented fact. She looked small, compact, maybe 65 kilograms if you counted her boots. Her hair was pulled back tight, dark brown with hints of copper when the light caught it right. She wore standard academy training gear, gray synthetic fabric that looked 2 sizes too big on her frame. She was rolling her shoulders, loosening up, completely relaxed. Too relaxed. Across the arena floor stood Kravik the Destroyer, 2.4 meters tall, 190 kilograms of muscle, chitin armor, and bad attitude. He had been undefeated in the Academy Combat Leagues for 6 seasons. 6! His species, the Thornax, were bred for war. Their exoskeletons could deflect blade strikes. Their strength was legendary. Kravik himself had once torn a reinforced bulkhead door off its hinges during a boarding exercise, and now he was going to fight a human girl who looked like a stiff breeze might knock her over. This was going to be a disaster. "This is illegal," I muttered, my mandibles clicking with agitation. "This is going to be a murder. We should stop this." "The human requested the match," Threxus reminded me, reviewing the data pad. "She signed all the waivers. She insisted, actually. Kept saying something about being tired of gentle sparring?" I had heard the rumors, of course. Everyone had. Humans were supposed to be tough, durable. Their world had gravity that would crush most species, an atmosphere that contained poison, and predators that made our worst nightmares look like educational children's programs. But rumors were just that. Rumors. I had seen her training scores. She was fast, yes. Good reflexes. But so what? Speed meant nothing against someone who could take your punches all day and then crush your skull with one backhanded swing. The arena was packed. Word had spread through the station like a containment breach. Cadets from 17 different species filled the observation decks, all chattering in their various languages, placing bets, recording on their personal devices. This was entertainment to them, a spectacle. To me, it was a pending medical emergency. "Combatants, prepare," I announced through the arena speakers, my voice amplified across the space. Kravik stepped forward, his forelegs carrying him with predatory grace. His mandibles spread wide in what his species considered a smile. He was enjoying this, relishing it. He had been bragging for days about how he would, quote, teach the soft skin about real combat. Riley stepped onto the mat. She did not smile, did not grimace, did not show any expression at all, really. She just walked forward with this calm, measured stride, like she was going to the commissary for lunch instead of entering a fight that could end with her in the medical bay for weeks. "This is Academy-sanctioned combat training," I continued, following the required protocol, even though my every instinct screamed that this was wrong. Strikes are permitted to all body zones except primary neural clusters. Fight continues until submission, incapacitation, or instructor intervention. Medical teams are standing by. That last part was not standard in the announcement. I added it because we were absolutely going to need them. "Combatants, acknowledge!" "Acknowledged!" Kravik's voice boomed across the arena, deep and resonant. "Acknowledged," Riley said quietly, almost conversationally. Like this was boring. My blood went cold. Well, colder. My species' blood ran pretty cold normally, but still. "Begin!" Kravik moved first. He was fast for his size. I will give him that. He closed the distance in 4 powerful strides, his primary arms raised for a crushing overhead strike that I had seen him use to end dozens of matches in the first 10 seconds. It was a good strategy. Use his reach, his strength, end it quick before the opponent could find any rhythm. Riley did not move. She stood there, watching him come, and I actually started reaching for the emergency stop button because clearly she had frozen. Clearly she was in shock. Clearly this was about to go very, very badly. And then, at the last possible moment, Riley moved. She did not dodge, did not duck. She stepped forward. Forward. Directly into Kravik's attack range, and her right hand came up in this tight, compact motion that looked more like she was pointing at something than throwing a punch. Her fist connected with Kravik's throat. The sound was wet, organic, wrong. Kravik made this choking, gurgling noise that I had never heard a Thornax make before. His overhead strike, all that momentum and power and intent, just stopped, evaporated. His 4 arms windmilled uselessly as his body tried to remember how to process oxygen, and Riley was already moving again. She pivoted on her left foot, her right leg sweeping out low, and she kicked Kravik's forward leg at the joint. The crack echoed through the arena like a gunshot. Thornax exoskeletons are tough, yes, but they have joints, weak points, and apparently Riley knew exactly where they were. Kravik went down on one knee, and the arena, previously buzzing with excited chatter, went dead silent. Riley did not celebrate, did not pause. She moved behind him with this fluid, economical motion, grabbed one of his secondary arms, and twisted. Kravik screamed, actually screamed, this high-pitched shriek that I did not know his vocal cords could produce. And then Riley did something with her weight and her leverage, and suddenly Kravik was face down on the mat, with a human girl half his size controlling his entire body with what looked like minimal effort. 3 seconds. The entire thing took 3 seconds. "Submission!" I shouted into the microphone, my voice cracking. "I declare submission!" Riley released immediately and stepped back. Kravik did not move. He lay there on the mat, breathing hard, his exoskeleton cracked, his pride shattered, looking like someone had just explained a complex mathematical proof that overturned everything he thought he knew about the universe. The arena remained silent. Then someone started clapping. Slowly. Others joined in. Within moments, the entire observation deck was erupting in noise, shouting, cheering, everyone trying to process what they had just witnessed. I activated my communication link to the medical team. Medical to the arena floor. Non-critical injuries, probably. Maybe? Honestly, I am not sure. Riley walked back to her prep area, still showing no emotion, and grabbed a towel to wipe some sweat from her face. Just a normal day. Just another training session. I descended from my observation post and approached her carefully, like she was a piece of unstable ordnance. "Cadet Morgan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "That was... Where did you learn?" She looked at me with these calm, dark eyes that had probably seen things I could not imagine. My dad was a Marine instructor back on Earth. He started teaching me basics when I was 6. After that, I trained in mixed martial arts for 12 years, competed nationally. She shrugged. It is just fighting, sir. Not complicated. Not complicated. Not complicated. I looked back at Kravik, who was now being helped up by medical personnel, still looking dazed and confused, and possibly having an existential crisis about his entire existence. You knew where to strike, I said. You knew his weak points. How? Your species has never fought Thornax in recorded history. Riley tilted her head slightly, like I had asked a particularly stupid question. I watched his previous matches, studied his species anatomy in the database. Thornax have rigid exoskeletons, but flexible joints at the leg segments and exposed tissue at the throat. Basic biomechanics. She paused. Sir, with respect, that is standard preparation for any fight. You study your opponent. You find the weaknesses. Then you exploit them. Standard preparation. I felt a tremor run through my sensory stalks. You have fought opponents like Kravik before? Asked. Not his species specifically, she said, but bigger, stronger? Yeah, lots of times. She smiled then, just a little, and it was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had been underestimated before and found it amusing. Sir, on Earth, we have this thing we say in fight training. Real fights do not look like the movies. Real fights end fast, usually in the first exchange. Because in a real fight, you are not trying to score points or look cool. You are trying to break something important before they break you. She picked up her water bottle, took a sip, completely casual. Kravik wanted a fight. I gave him one. It just ended faster than he expected. Across the arena, Kravik was being escorted out, limping but mobile. He would recover, physically at least. His reputation was going to take longer. Threxis approached me, his face plates flushed with excitement. Instructor, that was incredible! The betting pools have gone insane! Everyone is talking about the human! I watched Riley as she started her cool-down stretches, acting like she had not just dismantled the Academy's reigning combat champion in the time it takes most people to decide what to eat for breakfast. Threxis, I said quietly, pull up the humans file, all of it. Training history, planetary information, cultural database, everything. Sir? Do it. Now. Because I had a very uncomfortable realization settling into my brain like a parasite that would not leave. If Riley Morgan was just an average human, just someone with some training and competitive experience, what did that say about their actual soldiers, their actual warriors, their military specialists who trained for this their entire lives? What kind of species produces someone like this as normal? The betting pools might be going insane, but I was starting to have a different reaction entirely. I was starting to be afraid. Not of Riley specifically. She seemed perfectly professional, polite even, but afraid of what her existence implied, afraid of what it meant that humans could produce fighters like this, people who treated combat like it was a solved equation, who studied and adapted and exploited weaknesses with this cold, calculated efficiency. Humans, it seemed, did not just survive their nightmare world. They thrived on it. They internalized it. They turned violence into a science, and then taught it to their children starting at age 6. And now they were out here, in the galaxy, at our academy, showing us what real fighting looked like. Riley finished her stretches and started heading toward the exit. Several cadets tried to approach her, congratulate her, ask questions. She was polite, but brief, clearly not interested in socializing. She just wanted to get back to her quarters maybe eat, probably review her performance, and figure out what she could have done better. Because, of course, that is what she would do. Improve, adapt, optimize. I had been teaching combat for 300 cycles. I thought I knew what fighting was. Thought I understood violence and training and the warrior mindset. Turns out I had been teaching theater, performance combat, academy rules. Riley Morgan had just shown me the difference between sport and survival. And the truly terrifying part? She had been holding back. I could see it in the way she moved, the control she maintained, the precision she applied. She could have hurt Kravik much worse, could have broken bones, ruptured organs, ended his career permanently. She chose not to, which meant she had not just physical skill, but judgment, restraint, the ability to calibrate her violence to the exact appropriate level. That might be the scariest thing of all. Threxis returned with the data pad, his expression troubled. "Sir, I have been reviewing the human cultural database, their combat sports, their military history, their—" He trailed off, looking disturbed. "Sir, they have over 300 distinct fighting systems. 300! Different cultures across their planet developed different ways to hurt each other efficiently, and they have been doing it for their entire recorded history." I took the pad from him and started scrolling through the information. Boxing, wrestling, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, Sistema, Sambo, on and on and on. Each one a complete system of human destruction. Each one tested across generations. Each one proven effective by people who lived on a world where everything wanted to kill them. "They have a phrase," Threxis continued, reading from his own device. "They say that humans are the only species that runs toward danger for fun. They call it an adrenaline rush. Their bodies produce a chemical response to life-threatening situations that makes them feel pleasure." I looked up from the data pad toward the exit where Riley had disappeared. "Threxis," I said slowly, "I think we need to completely revise our combat curriculum." "Sir?" "Because what we have been teaching is not combat. It is dancing. Stylized, controlled, safe dancing." I gestured toward the arena mat where Kravik had been dismantled. "That, what we just witnessed, is combat. And if the humans are going to be out here, working alongside us, fighting beside us?" I felt my mandibles click nervously. "We need to learn their way, before someone else does. Before we face an enemy who has studied them like Riley studied Kravik." The observation decks were slowly emptying now, cadets streaming out in excited clusters, still talking, still processing, still trying to understand what they had seen. But I stayed there, standing in the arena, thinking about a species that turned violence into science. A species that taught their children to fight before they taught them algebra. A species that looked at danger and ran toward it for the chemical high. And somewhere in her quarters, Riley Morgan was probably doing push-ups, or reviewing combat footage, or studying the anatomy of some other species she might face next week. Because that is what you do when fighting is not special, not exciting, not even particularly interesting, just something you learned, something you practiced, something you were good at, like breathing, like walking, like being human. I had wanted to see a real fight. The galaxy had been curious about these humans, about whether the stories were true. Well, now we knew. Real fights end fast, and humans are very, very good at them. The Academy commissary was unusually quiet 3 days after the incident, and by incident, I mean the systematic demolition of our combat training philosophy by a human who weighed less than a standard equipment locker. I sat across from Commander Yelix, the station's military operations director, A Calvorian with silver scales and 4 times my combat experience. She was reviewing footage of the match on her personal tablet for probably the 20th time, her inner eyelids flickering with concentration. "Play it again," she said. "The throat strike." I obliged, though I had the sequence memorized at this point. Riley's forward step, the compact punch, the immediate follow-up. Efficient. Brutal. Over before Kravik's nervous system could even register the threat properly. 17 frames, Yelix murmured. From initial movement to full control. 17 frames. She looked up at me with an expression I had rarely seen on her face. Uncertainty. Vorkath, in my entire career, I have never seen anyone neutralize a Thornax warrior that quickly. Not even other Thornax. She made it look routine, I said, pushing my nutrition paste around the bowl without much appetite. Like filing a report or running a systems check. Yelix set down the tablet and leaned back in her chair, which creaked under her considerable bulk. I received communication from High Command this morning. They want a full assessment of human combat capabilities, tactical analysis, threat evaluation. She paused, choosing her words carefully. They used the word threat, Vorkath, about our own recruits. That made my sensory stalks droop. Riley has been nothing but professional, respectful. She follows every regulation, attends every briefing, helps other cadets with their training. I know, Yelix said, which makes it worse, somehow. If she were aggressive, hostile, difficult to manage, we could classify her behavior pattern and develop protocols. But she is just competent. Lethally, casually competent. She tapped the tablet screen where Riley's face was frozen mid-strike. This is someone who has internalized violence to the point where it requires no emotional investment. No anger. No fear. Just application of technique. The commissary doors opened, and speak of the Deathworld devil herself. Riley walked in with 2 other cadets. Jana, a Velocian pilot trainee, and Korex, a Danthari engineer. They were laughing about something, Riley making animated gestures with her hands, looking completely normal. Friendly, non-threatening. Korex said something that made Riley laugh, this genuine sound of amusement, and she playfully punched his shoulder. He staggered sideways into a wall. She had barely touched him. "See?" Yelix said quietly. "She does not even realize her own strength half the time. To her, that was a friendly tap. To Korex, that probably felt like getting hit by a cargo loader." I watched Riley grab her food, standard protein pack and vegetables, and sit down with her friends. She was teaching them something now, demonstrating with her hands, probably explaining some human concept or cultural reference. Just a regular cadet. Just a young woman far from home, trying to fit in at a military academy where she was the only one of her kind. Except she could kill most of the station population with her bare hands if she wanted to. "What are you going to tell High Command?" I asked. Yelix was quiet for a long moment. "The truth, I suppose, that humans are dangerous. Not because they are hostile, but because they come from a place where danger is normal, where their baseline existence requires capabilities that most species only develop through specialized military training." She picked up her drink, some sort of mineral supplement that smelled like rust. "I am also going to recommend we accept more human applicants. As many as will come." That surprised me. "Why?" "Because, Vorkath, think about the alternative. Think about what happens if we do not integrate them, do not learn to work alongside them, do not understand how they operate." She gestured toward Riley. "That young woman neutralized Kravik in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Now imagine a human military unit, trained and coordinated, operating as an actual combat force against an enemy who has no idea what they are dealing with. Imagine someone hostile encountering humans for the first time in a real conflict situation. I felt my circulatory system go sluggish with dread. It would be a massacre. Yes, and better we learn to work with them now, while they are friendly and willing to share their methods, than face them later as unknowns or, worse, as enemies. She had a point, a terrifying, logical point. Across the commissary, Riley was now arm-wrestling with Corex. He was twice her size, a species known for physical labor capabilities, and he was turning purple with effort. Riley looked mildly interested, her arm not even shaking, just holding position while Corex strained and struggled. Then she smiled, said something that made Jana laugh, and slammed Corex's arm down so fast the table jumped. Other cadets were gathering now, attracted by the spectacle, and Riley was shaking her head, trying to decline further challenges, but someone else sat down. Then another. She looked embarrassed by the attention, but was too polite to refuse, so she kept winning, kept demonstrating this casual superiority that she clearly did not think was impressive, but that left everyone else staring in disbelief. "I need to update the training protocols," I said, more to myself than to Yelix. "If humans can perform at that level, we are doing our other cadets a disservice by not teaching them proper technique." "Agreed," Yelix said. "I want you to work with Riley. Develop new curriculum. Incorporate human combat methodology into our standard program." She fixed me with a serious look. "And Vorkath? Find out what she is not showing us. Because I guarantee, as impressive as that demonstration was, it was not the full extent of her capabilities." That thought had occurred to me as well. Riley had ended the fight quickly, efficiently, but safely. She had controlled the damage, calibrated her response, which meant she possessed greater capacity that she had deliberately withheld. What would she look like without restrictions, without rules, in actual life-threatening combat? I was not sure I wanted to know. Over the next week, I worked closely with Riley to develop new training modules. She was patient, articulate, and surprisingly good at breaking down complex techniques into teachable components. We filmed demonstration videos, created written materials, established progression sequences. And slowly, I began to understand just how different human combat philosophy was from everything the galaxy practiced. Most species, when they fight, rely on natural advantages. The Thornax use strength and armor. The Velocians use speed and flexibility. The Calvorians use raw mass and endurance. Everyone plays to their inherent biological strengths. Humans do not have inherent biological strengths, not compared to most spacefaring species. They are medium-sized, medium strength, medium speed, nothing special in any particular category. So instead, they developed techniques that bypass biological advantages entirely. Joint locks that work regardless of your opponent's strength. Strikes targeting vulnerable anatomy that exists in most species. Leverage principles that turn size into a disadvantage. Psychological tactics that exploit instinct and expectation. "We are problem solvers," Riley explained during one of our planning sessions. "Back on Earth, humans were not the strongest predator, not the fastest, not the most durable. We survived by being adaptable, by learning, by developing tools and techniques that multiplied our effectiveness." She demonstrated a wrist lock on me, gently, explaining the biomechanics. "This works on any creature with a similar joint structure. Does not matter if they are twice my strength. The joint bends one way. I apply pressure perpendicular to that. Physics does the rest." It was beautiful in a disturbing sort of way. Combat as applied science rather than physical contest. The new curriculum launched the following month. All cadets, regardless of species, would now learn human-based combat fundamentals. Proper striking technique, grappling basics, anatomical weak points, situational awareness. The first day was chaos. Cadets, who had trained for years in traditional methods, suddenly found themselves completely ineffective against smaller, weaker opponents who knew what they were doing. Pride was damaged. Egos were bruised. Several students quit in frustration, but others adapted, learned, started to understand what Riley had been trying to teach us from the beginning. Real fights are not about strength or honor or traditional technique. Real fights are about survival, about ending the threat as quickly and efficiently as possible, using whatever advantages you can create or exploit. 2 months into the new program, I watched a Velocian cadet, small and light even by her species standards, successfully defend herself against 3 larger attackers in a scenario exercise. She used footwork to control positioning, targeted vulnerable zones, created opportunities through misdirection, and generally fought like a human. It was extraordinary. Riley watched from the observation deck beside me, arms crossed, nodding occasionally in approval. "Your people would be proud," I said. She shrugged. "They are just learning the basics. Earth has been doing this for thousands of years. We have fighting systems that take decades to master. This is like kindergarten level." Kindergarten, their word for early childhood education. This was kindergarten level to them. "Riley," I said carefully, "can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Why did you join the Galactic Military Academy? You could have enlisted in Earth's forces, stayed with your own kind. Why come out here?" She was quiet for a moment, watching the cadets below run through their drills. "My dad told me something before I left. He said that humans spent most of our history fighting each other. Tribes, nations, ideologies. We got really good at killing our own kind." She glanced at me. "But now we are out here, part of something bigger. And maybe, if we can teach others what we learned from all that violence, all that conflict, maybe it means something. Maybe all that pain and struggle back home can actually protect people now. People who are not human. People who never had to develop these skills because their worlds were not constantly trying to murder them." There was something profound in that. Something almost noble. A species taking the worst aspects of their existence and transforming them into protective capability for others. "That is why you held back against Kravik," I said. "You were not trying to hurt him. You were trying to teach him." "He wanted to know what a real fight looked like," Riley said simply. "So I showed him. Fast ending, controlled damage, lesson learned. Now he knows. He will be better for it, eventually. Once his ego recovers." Down on the training floor, the Velocian cadet was now showing her technique to others, passing on what she had learned. Knowledge spreading, skills multiplying. This was how humans operated, I realized. They did not just fight. They taught, they shared, they lifted others up to their level instead of guarding their advantages jealously. It was a very different approach than most species took with military knowledge. "Instructor!" Threxus came rushing over, his face plates flushed with excitement. "You need to see this! The Academy combat rankings just updated." He thrust the data pad at me. I scanned the listings, seeing the usual names in the top positions, then stopped. Riley Morgan had not entered the rankings. She was not competing officially. But 17 other cadets who had trained with her, who had learned her methods, had entered the top 50. 6 of them were in the top 20. And the Velocian cadet I had just been watching? She was ranked 7th. 7th! She had been barely scraping the bottom 100 before. "It is working," Threxis said, almost breathless. "The human methods are working. Everyone who learns them is improving dramatically." Riley looked uncomfortable with the attention. "It is just fundamentals, basic technique. Anyone can learn it with practice." But that was the thing, was it not? Anyone could learn it. That was the point. These were not mystical abilities or genetic advantages, just techniques developed through trial and error over millennia on a planet where failure meant death. And now the galaxy had access to it. I thought about Yelix's concerns, about High Command's threat assessment, about the fear that humans represented some sort of danger to galactic peace. But watching these cadets train, watching them learn and improve and become more capable of protecting themselves and others, I realized the real danger was not humans themselves. The real danger was not learning from them, not adapting, not accepting that maybe, just maybe, a species that survived a Deathworld nightmare had something valuable to teach everyone else. "Threxis," I said, "contact the other Academy branches. Tell them we have new combat protocols available. Tell them the results we are seeing. Tell them—" I looked at Riley, who was now demonstrating something to a group of interested cadets, patient and thorough. "Tell them that humans are not the threat. Ignorance is, and we have the cure." The semester continued. More humans arrived at the Academy, each one bringing their own specialties, their own perspectives. Some were quiet and reserved like Riley. Others were boisterous and friendly. Some were serious military professionals. Others were academic types interested in xenology. But they all shared that same fundamental competence, that same casual capability born from living somewhere that demanded excellence just to survive another day. And slowly, carefully, the galaxy began to understand. Humans were not monsters. They were not warriors seeking conquest. They were just people who happened to be very good at violence because their planet required it. And now, given the opportunity, they were more than happy to teach others those survival skills. 6 months after Riley's demonstration against Kravik, I attended the Academy graduation ceremony. 53 cadets completed the program. 19 of them had human combat certifications. All 19 scored in the top percentiles of their classes. Riley graduated with honors, accepted a commission in the Galactic Defense Fleet, and was immediately assigned to the training command where she would continue teaching. Kravik also graduated. He had healed, both physically and mentally. He even thanked Riley publicly during the ceremony, acknowledging that losing that fight had taught him more than any of his victories. He had learned humility, adaptation, and respect for capability that did not announce itself loudly. As the ceremony concluded and families gathered to celebrate, I found Riley standing alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Congratulations," I said, approaching carefully. "You should be proud." "Thanks," she said. "It has been a good experience. I learned a lot." "You learned?" I clicked my mandibles in amusement. "Riley, you taught us everything." She smiled. "No, sir. I taught you some combat techniques, but you taught me something more important. You taught me that strength does not have to mean aggression. That capability does not require arrogance. That different species can learn from each other if they are willing to listen." She looked at me. "Humans are good at fighting because we had to be. But maybe out here, with all of you, we can be good at other things too. Better things." There was hope in those words, hope for a future where humanity's violent past became protective capability for a peaceful present, where Deathworld survival skills became life-saving tools for everyone. "The galaxy is lucky to have you," I said honestly. "We will see," Riley replied. "The galaxy is big. Lots of challenges ahead. Lots of things we have not encountered yet." She grinned. "But hey, if it gets dangerous, at least now everyone knows real fights end fast." I laughed, a chittering sound that echoed off the observation deck glass. "Yes, that lesson has definitely been learned." We stood there together, human and alien, teacher and student, looking out at the infinite possibilities ahead. And for the first time in my 300 cycles of service, I felt genuinely optimistic about the future. Because yes, humans were dangerous. Yes, they came from a nightmare world that produced natural-born fighters, but they were also kind, generous with their knowledge, willing to share their hard-won survival skills with anyone who asked. And in a galaxy full of unknown threats and uncertain futures, having humans on your side seemed like a very good idea indeed. Somewhere on the station, new cadets were arriving for the next semester. Some would be talented. Some would struggle. Some would become great warriors. Others would find different paths. But all of them, every single one, would learn the most important lesson Riley Morgan had taught us. Real fights end fast. So you better know what you are doing before they start. And thanks to humans, now we did.